The rancher shot the bull and left it to die under the stars, bleeding into the dirt. But when the sun rose, the bull was back, dragging itself 6 miles through blood and bone, not to be rescued, but to haunt the man who betrayed it. Tom Carver had never seen anything like it. At first, in the blue haze of dawn, he thought the dark figure by the corral was a trick of light or a coyote, maybe something blown in by the wind. But as he stepped out onto the porch, coffee in one hand, gun resting just inside the doorway as usual, he froze. It was Gideon, not a ghost, not a memory. The bull he had shot 3 nights ago, big as a truck, black as burned molasses, stood barely upright near the broken gate. One leg hung useless. The other 3 bore the weight of a creature held up not by strength, but by will. His side was torn open, caked with blood and grit, a wound so deep Tom could see the pink tissue below the skin. Flies buzzed near the dried crust, but Gideon did not swat them away. He just stood there, breathing shallow, eyes locked on the man who left him behind. Tom felt the breath leave his lungs. He had not expected this. Not in any universe. When he fired that shot, angry, exhausted, convinced the bull was more trouble than he was worth, he thought it would be final. He did not aim for the heart, just wanted to put Gideon down, teach him a lesson, be done with the chaos. He watched him fall in the moonlight, twisting in the dust like a downed tree. Then he had walked away, did not check if the bull was still alive, did not care. He had driven Gideon out to the gulch himself, an open strip of land with no water, no cover, just stone and silence. He figured the coyotes would handle what the bullet did not. And for 3 days he told himself it had been necessary, that sometimes men had to do hard things, that the bull was dangerous. But seeing Gideon now, scarred and swaying, was like seeing a lie climb out of the dirt. Tom took a step forward. His boots crunched the gravel. Gideon did not move. He did not lower his head, did not threaten. But there was something in his eyes that made Tom hesitate, something ancient and aware. The bull was not there to attack. He was there to be seen. The coffee sloshed in Tom's mug as his hand trembled. Slowly, deliberately, he turned and walked back inside. He set the mug on the counter and stared at his reflection in the window. His own face looked older than he remembered, more sunken, hollow-eyed. His shoulders slumped under a weight he had not felt when he pulled the trigger, but felt now heavy as iron. He went to the bathroom, grabbed a clean cloth, antiseptic, and gauze from the cabinet. They were not meant for animals, but they would have to do. Then he filled a bucket with warm water from the kitchen tap, careful not to spill, though the surface rippled like his hands knew what was coming. Outside, the wind had picked up. Dust blew across the porch in soft trails. The sun rose higher, casting light on Gideon's body. The wound looked worse now, angrier. The bull's chest rose and fell like he was pulling air from deep underground. Tom approached slowly. He knelt beside Gideon without a word. The bull did not flinch. Tom dipped the cloth in the water and began wiping the dried blood from his flank. The cloth turned brown, then red. The antiseptic hissed when it touched exposed flesh. Gideon grunted, low and deep, but did not move. "I do not know why you came back," Tom muttered. "Should have died out there. You were supposed to." He was not expecting an answer, but he kept talking anyway. "You were not just another bull. You know that. I raised you. From nothing." His voice cracked on the last word, and he focused harder on the wound, pressing fresh gauze against it, wrapping the band tight. "I was mad, but I should have ended it clean. I should have done it right." Gideon blinked slowly. His breath steamed faintly in the cold morning air. When Tom stood again, his knees popped loudly. "Do not know what you are waiting for," he said, voice quiet. "But I see you. You can stop staring now." The bull did not blink. Tom went to the barn and opened the side gate, left the stall unlocked, put out hay, then walked back inside without looking behind him. He poured himself a shot of whiskey and left it untouched on the table. The taste of blood and dirt was still in his throat. That night he did not sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the dark ceiling, listening to the wind whistling through the rafters. Every time a branch scraped against the siding, he imagined it was hooves. He imagined the bull climbing the porch, knocking on the door with his horn. But nothing came. At dawn, Tom rose and pulled on his coat. When he stepped outside, Gideon was still there, unmoved. Same position, same expression. Except now something was different. He had taken one step closer to the porch. Just one. Tom stared at the space between them, then turned and went inside. He poured water into a second bucket and carried it back out. Gideon drank this time. Slow, careful. But he drank. Tom watched him for a long time after that. Not because he did not know what else to do, but because he could not stop. The bull had come back. Not to be healed, not to forgive, but to be remembered. And Tom understood now that whatever came next, it would not be mercy. Tom found himself talking to the bull more than he talked to any living soul. By the seventh day, the routine had hardened into something like ritual. He would rise before the sun, fill 2 buckets, one with water, one with softened grain, and walk them out to the spot by the porch where Gideon now waited every morning. The bull had not moved far since he first returned, but inch by inch, step by ragged step, he had drawn closer. By now, he was near enough that Tom could hear his breathing from the kitchen window. Heavy, thick, dragging like bellows inside a furnace. He would wrap the wound, change the dressing, pick away dead tissue with a rusted pair of shears. He worked with the same gentleness he once gave to newborn calves. Only this time, his hands shook with shame more than age. He told himself he was helping, that this meant something. But deep down, Tom knew it was not redemption. It was reckoning. Gideon never took his eyes off him. That stare, quiet, dark, unwavering, worked deeper than any accusation ever could. The bull had come back not because he needed saving. He had returned to make Tom face what he had done. And Tom could not lie anymore. Not to the bull. Not to himself. It had started long before the bullet. Long before the trough. Long before the drought and the madness of empty pastures. Started the night Tom found the calf. He had been young then. The land was fuller, greener. His heart not yet hardened into stone. It was spring, and the sky had broken open with a storm that rattled the teeth in your jaw. Fence posts split in the wind. Trees bent sideways. Somewhere in that mess, a heifer went down giving birth. Tom had found her in the morning, struck dead under a fallen branch. The calf beside her, half drowned in the muddy creek, was barely alive. Eyes sealed, legs trembling, still slick with afterbirth. Most men would have left it. Nature was cruel. But something in Tom moved. He took off his coat, wrapped the calf in wool, and carried him all the way to the barn like a child. He did not sleep that night, just laid the calf across his lap and fed him from a bottle until sunrise. By the next week, the little bull was walking. He named him Gideon, after the warrior in the Bible. Not because he was strong, but because he was afraid and chose to fight anyway. In those days, Gideon followed him like a dog, nudged his pockets for treats, pushed his nose under Tom's arm for attention. Even Lila used to laugh at it. "You treat that bull better than your own brother," she would say, half teasing, half true. Tom did not deny it. Truth was, he felt closer to Gideon than anyone else, especially when Lila started getting sick. The doctors never found what was wrong at first. Just fatigue, they said. Stress. But she got thinner. Her skin lost color. The spark in her eyes faded. Tom sold off 24 head of cattle to afford hospital visits. He spent long nights driving her to appointments in town, waiting in rooms that smelled like bleach and death. And through all of it, Gideon was there. He never needed a leash, never wandered. Always stood by the barn gate like a sentinel, watching Tom load the truck, unload the groceries, pace the porch at midnight when he did not know what to do. The bull became a constant, not just a beast, a tether, until the night everything fell apart. It was late summer, a heat wave. Lila was worse than she had ever been, dizzy, pale, muttering things that did not make sense. Tom scooped her into the truck bed and started for the highway. But when he reached the south pasture, the gate was torn open. Fence posts smashed to splinters. Gideon had broken through again, maybe chasing coyotes, maybe bored, maybe just angry at the world like Tom was. But in the dark, Tom had to stop. Had to clear the debris. 20 precious minutes lost. Lila did not survive the night. The doctors said it would not have mattered. Nothing you could have done, they told him. She was already going. But Tom knew better. Or maybe he just needed to blame something that could not talk back. That was the night the tether snapped. After that, everything changed. Tom kept Gideon, but the bond was gone. The bull got bigger, harder to handle. Wrecked fences. Challenged Tom in the pasture. But Tom never sold him. Not even when buyers offered double. He did not know why at the time. Now he did. Gideon was not just a bull. He was memory. A living symbol of everything Tom had lost. Everything he refused to feel. Every time he saw those dark eyes, he saw Lila's face as the truck rocked over potholes, her fingers going slack in his. So when the bull smashed the last good water trough, Tom did not see a fence smasher or a rogue. He saw the night she died, the broken gate, the lost time. He saw the blame. And so he raised the rifle, pulled the trigger, left him to die like a secret. Now, standing there on the porch, watching that same bull breathe through pain, refusing to die, refusing to run, Tom felt the weight of it crush his ribs from the inside. "You remember, do not you?" he said one night, kneeling beside Gideon as he changed the bandage. The bull did not move, did not blink. "You remember everything." Tom's hands paused. "I blamed you for her." The words nearly caught in his throat. "But it was me. I waited too long. I wanted to fix it myself. Like I always do." The silence that followed was endless. Gideon closed his eyes. Not sleep, just stillness. Tom sat down beside him, knees cracking. "You came back because I could not walk away from this." He looked down at his own hands. Scarred, calloused, still shaking. "And you would not let me." Tom began to think maybe the bull had forgiven him. It was not that Gideon softened, not exactly. He did not nuzzle Tom's hand or snort in recognition the way he used to when he was a calf. But he stopped flinching when Tom changed his dressings. He ate the grain without hesitation. And most telling of all, he stayed. Each morning, the bull moved an inch closer to the porch. At first, it was barely noticeable. But by the second week, Tom found him lying just beneath the swing where Lila used to sip her coffee. It was not just a physical movement. Felt like a choice. Like Gideon had measured the distance between them and decided to close it on his own terms. Tom started speaking to him more, sometimes out loud, sometimes not. The habit crept in like a weed through old fence slats. He would sit on the top step of the porch in the evenings, a glass of whiskey in one hand, the other resting on his knee, and just talk. "I am not proud of much," he muttered one night, watching the sun settle behind the ridge. "But raising you, that meant something." Gideon did not move, but his ears twitched. "It was enough. You outlived damn near everything that mattered. The calves, the workers, her." He took a long drink. "I thought I had to make you disappear. But maybe I just did not want to see myself in you anymore." He did not expect an answer, and the bull gave none. But in the stillness, Tom found something close to comfort. The wound on Gideon's side had started to scab over. The swelling in his leg went down. He was eating again, drinking more, gaining weight. Not much, but enough to mark a change. Tom began thinking further ahead. He made repairs around the barn, patched a leak in the roof, tightened a loose gatepost. He cleared a stall that had been used for storage and laid down fresh hay. It was almost unconscious, the way he did it, as if the bull would soon be back inside, part of the life Tom had nearly lost. He even started writing again. It had been years since he opened the old leather journal he once carried on every cattle run. Most of the entries had long since stopped, cut short around the time Lila got sick. But now, each night, he scribbled something. Gideon Day 12. Stood closer to the porch than ever before. Ate from my hand today. No limp on the front leg. Sometimes he wrote more. I think I am beginning to understand that I was not angry because he broke the trough. I was angry because he survived everything I did not. There was peace in the routine, in the silence, Tom even caught himself whistling one afternoon while hauling a salt block across the yard. The sound startled him as much as it startled Gideon. He had not heard his own joy in years, and now it echoed like wind through an empty canyon. That night, he poured 2 fingers of whiskey, but left the bottle corked. First, he said, we could do it different this time. Just the 2 of us. Gideon stood across from him, under the porch's overhang, his eyes catching the flicker of the lantern. It almost looked like he nodded. Tom let the idea settle. Maybe this was his second chance. Maybe whatever sins he carried had been measured and found bearable. He had not deserved grace, but perhaps the bull offered it anyway. The next morning, Tom found Gideon sleeping, truly sleeping, for the first time since he returned. His legs were curled beneath him, breath slow, rhythmic, the same way he used to sleep in the barn as a calf. For a moment, Tom just watched. Then he stepped off the porch and gently scratched behind his ear. Gideon stirred but did not wake. It was the closest they had been in years. That same day, Tom walked the north fence line and found a stretch that had snapped in the wind. It was not major, but it was a risk. Coyotes had been creeping close again, and with the other cows calving soon, he did not want problems. He worked till dusk hammering new rails into the posts. By the time he got back to the house, sweat soaked his shirt and dirt clung to his boots. Gideon was still there, watching. Tom leaned against the porch railing, stretching his back. You ever think about leaving? He asked, more to himself than anyone. Gideon blinked. You could have gone anywhere. Laid down and died. Gone feral. But you came back. He chuckled under his breath, more bitter than amused. Maybe you knew I needed you more than I ever did before. A long pause stretched between them. The wind picked up, stirring the brittle grass. Tom stepped inside the house and sat down at the kitchen table, pulling the journal back toward him. His hand hovered over the page. Something about today felt different. Gideon, day 16. Slept near the porch. Let me touch his ear. The wound's healing better than expected. He hesitated, then wrote one more line. I think he's staying. But outside, in the dark, Gideon's eyes never closed again. By the 3rd week, Tom Carver stopped sleeping easy. What began as cautious hope, the softening in Gideon's stare, the quiet mornings, the slow healing, started to twist into something heavier. He could not explain it, not to himself and certainly not to the bull. But the stillness between them no longer felt like peace. Felt like waiting. Gideon was stronger now. He was not limping anymore. The wound in his side had closed over, raw pink flesh now wrapped in thick scar. His eyes were not sunken. His frame had filled back out, slow but steady, like the body remembered what it once was and was reclaiming it. Each day, the bull walked a little farther, stood a little taller, and Tom began to feel small. He did not want to admit it, but he was afraid. He watched Gideon move across the yard with a weightless calm, and the unease burrowed deeper. This was not the calf he raised, nor the beast he shot. This was something else now, something he did not understand, something he could not control. One morning, Tom caught himself reaching for the rifle out of habit when he stepped outside. Just a reflex, just a second. But it sat heavy in his hands. He put it down fast, ashamed. That night he dreamed of the gully. Not how it was, but how it could have been. In the dream, he stood over the bull again, rifle shaking. But Gideon looked at him with lilith eyes. Tired, quiet, disappointed. When the shot came, Tom heard a voice whisper, "You do this to everything that loves you." He woke soaked in sweat, chest aching. The next day, he tried to bury himself in work. Cleaned out the barn gutters. Repaired a busted axle on the trailer. Chopped firewood even though it was not cold. But every time he paused, every time he caught his breath, he saw Gideon standing there. Same place, same silence, same stare. Not hostile, just present. Tom started noticing things. Subtle but unnerving. A gate unlatched when he knew he had closed it. Footprints near the porch. The screen door left slightly open in the morning. He tried to dismiss it. Bulls do not play mind games. But this one remembered. That night he drank more than usual. The whiskey did not help. It just made his thoughts louder. What if the bull was not forgiving him? What if it was just waiting? What if this entire stretch of healing, this quiet routine, was not peace? What if it was patience? The next morning, Gideon was standing at the bottom of the porch steps. Not lying down, not eating, just standing. His breath steamed in the air. His eyes did not blink. Tom stared at him for a long time before speaking. "I should have put you down clean." His voice was quiet, brittle. "I knew it back then, but I thought walking away made me strong." He looked at the rifle leaning beside the door. "Maybe this time I finish it right." He did not move for several minutes. Neither did Gideon. But something had shifted. That afternoon, Tom cleaned the gun. Took it apart, oiled the barrel, wiped it smooth with a cloth. It was not a decision. It was a drift. A slow return to what he knew. Control. Finality. An ending he could choose. He told himself it was mercy. That letting Gideon live with a wound like that was crueler than a quick shot. That it was what the old Tom would have done. The strong one. He waited until dusk. Gideon was grazing near the fence line, slow and steady, tail flicking lazily at flies. The light hit him just right, made the scar on his side glow silver like a reminder. Tom stepped out with the rifle. He did not call the bull's name, did not speak. He walked across the yard in silence, boots crunching the gravel like teeth grinding in a jaw. His heart was hammering now. His hands were not steady. 20 feet, 15, 10. Gideon lifted his head. And in that second, Tom saw it. The look, not shock, not fear, not even anger. Readiness. The bull had been waiting. Tom raised the rifle, finger finding the trigger. But before he could breathe in, Gideon moved. He did not charge in a blind rage. He surged with precision. For hooves hammering earth. One horn lowered, body rotating like a battering ram lined in bone. Tom barely had time to flinch. The horn caught him low, not in the chest, but in the leg. A sickening crunch echoed across the field as Tom's thigh gave way beneath the force. He flew sideways, landing in the dirt with a scream that tore the evening silence in half. The rifle flew from his grip, bounced once, and landed near the fence post, crushed under the bull's hoof an instant later. Tom rolled to his side, gasping. His leg bent the wrong way. Blood soaked his jeans. Pain like fire licked up his spine. Gideon stood over him now, not breathing hard, not snorting, just standing, looking down. Tom met his eyes. There was no fury in them, only certainty, as if this moment had always been coming. "You waited," Tom croaked. "You waited." Gideon lowered his head slightly, just enough to be understood. Then he turned. He did not run, did not charge again. He walked, across the field, past the barn, into the rising dusk, and he did not look back. Tom did not die. He wanted to. That first night, crawling through the dirt with a shattered leg and a mouth full of blood, he thought death would be easier. The pain in his thigh pulsed like a drum, and the darkness around him felt too quiet, like the whole world was waiting for him to go silent. But he did not. He stayed conscious long enough to drag himself back to the porch. It took him over an hour to cross the distance he once covered in seconds. Every inch was agony. He clawed the dirt, cried out, passed out once, woke up with ants crawling over his back. Eventually, he reached the steps. He did not climb them, just collapsed against them, sweat-soaked and shaking, whispering the bull's name like it was a curse, or maybe a prayer. Gideon. When morning came, he was still there, half-conscious, fevered. The birds chirped like nothing had happened. He was found a day later by a neighboring rancher who had stopped by looking for a borrowed fence cutter. Tom was airlifted to the hospital, unconscious from infection. By the time he woke up, the leg was already done for. The bone was shattered in 3 places. Tendons torn. They saved it technically, but Tom would never walk right again. A rod ran through his femur now. The scar curled like a question mark from hip to knee. He would need a cane for life. Maybe a walker in a few years. No one asked how it happened. Not directly. When they saw the bruises shaped like hooves, they did not press. Everyone knew bulls were dangerous. and everyone knew Tom had a history with that one. But the stories started anyway, that the bull had come back from the dead, that it had stood at Tom's door for days, unmoving, like it was waiting, that Tom had shot it once, and it had never forgotten. They whispered it in town over beers and barbershop chairs. Old men nodded solemnly like they understood. Some even drove past the ranch just to look. But they never stayed long, because the bull was gone, vanished, not dead, not sold, not seen again, just gone. Tom searched the hills for a week once he healed enough to drive, crutched through gullies and pastures, left grain piles and salt blocks in old haunts. Nothing, not a single hoofprint, but sometimes he swore he could feel it. A heat behind his back when he stood in the doorway too long. A shadow that was not there the second time he looked. And in the mornings, always the same thing. He would open the front door, step out slowly with his cane, and look toward the field. The porch swing still creaked in the breeze. The barn door hung open a little wider than he remembered closing it. The dust shimmered, but the space where Gideon had stood, always empty. He kept the scar on his leg clean, touched it every night before bed like a ritual. It was not just bone. It was memory, proof that what he did had a price. And not just the shooting, the walking away. That was what hurt most now. Not the wound, not even the cane. It was knowing that the bull had come back because Tom had not stayed, had not finished what he started, had not looked Gideon in the eye and accepted the cost. And so the bull had made him do exactly that. Tom sold off most of the herd after that, kept only a few cows, old ones, slow ones, enough to make it look like he was still ranching. He spent most of his days sitting on the porch with a journal in his lap, trying to write down what happened. Some days he could not. Other days, he wrote the same sentence over and over again. He came back to make me look. And then, just below it, and I still tried to look away. He never heard from Lilith's family again. They had not spoken in years anyway. But sometimes at night he imagined what she would say. That soft voice, tired but warm, telling him what she always did when he was too proud. You do not get to decide when you have paid enough, Tom. That is not how love works. He whispered that sometimes. To the wind, to the dirt, to the open field. A year passed. Then two. Tom walked slower. The cane felt heavier. But he never left the ranch. He could not. Because every day just after dawn, he stepped onto that porch and looked out across the field. And waited for the moment he knew was coming. The day the bull would return. Not for revenge. Not for blood. But just to stand there. So Tom would have to remember, again and again, that survival is not mercy. And walking away does not mean you are free. Sometimes the most painful thing a beast can do is come back and leave you broken in its place. Tom said he did not come back to kill me. He came back to make sure I would never walk away again.